Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial I'm going to be sharing with you how to sew this basque underbust dress with gathers. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. So let's dive right into today's video. So here is my pattern all cut out, and on the first part I cut it out on fold, and I added ½ inch at the neckline, at the shoulder and by the side. So I'm just going to go ahead to open this up, and also for the lining I cut out the same thing. So I'll be ironing a stay, a soft stay to this, or a stay. Now for the side part of this dress, I'm also going to open it up, and I went ahead to also notch the center to indicate the center of the pattern. So I added ½ inch in front and also at the lower part. So I'm just going to go ahead to open this up. For this pattern I cut out 2 pieces because we have 2 sides, and I also went ahead to cut out a lining for it, and I will be joining my pattern with ½ inch this way on both sides. I'll just go ahead and place, and I will stitch with ½ inch. So after stitching this, I'm also going to go ahead to stitch the other side of my pattern, and I'll also repeat the same thing on the lining piece. So now for the back pattern, this is what I have. I added ½ inch at the shoulder and around this part, and also at the lacing bar and the lower part. So by the side, do not add ½ inch. So I'm going to place my lining on top, and I'll be stitching up the neckline and this part, and also go down by ½ inch. So I'll just leave here open because I'm going to be adding a lacing bar, and I'll also go ahead to sew the sides. So before I do this, I'll be ironing a soft stay to the lining piece. So here is the front pattern. I've gone ahead to join it up, and this is the lining part of my dress, and also the main fabric. I've also gone ahead to sew or join it up. So now I'm going to be sewing boning on this part of my pattern, that is the main fabric, but I'm going to start immediately after my underbust, and I'm going to draw a line there. So I'll sew a boning here. So I'll just go ahead and make a line there, mark a line there, and the boning I'm going to go ahead to trim out about ½ inch from it because I don't want it poking me. So at the joining, I'll also stitch my boning there, and also at the center repeat the same thing at the side, and I'll also go ahead at the other side of my pattern, of my dress. I'm going to place and stitch. So after stitching that, I'll be showing you what I have for the back pattern. So I've gone ahead to stitch this, and now it's time for me to add the lacing bar area. So this is what I cut out. I'm making use of a loop, so I'll be attaching the loop to it. So if you're sewing yours with an eyelet, all you have to do is stitch this place first, and you're going to create a boning channel. But for me, I'm using a loop. I'm just going to fold what I have here into 2. So my loop is about 3.5 inches or 4 inches. Then I'm going to go ahead to fold it this way, mark 1 inch before I place the other one, or you can use 1.5 inches before I place the other one. And when I place, I'm going to go ahead to use my pin to secure it. After that, I'm going to go ahead to move to the next part, measure the same distance, and I will place the loop and I will pin it. Now after doing that, I'll go ahead to repeat this at the other side, measure the same 1.5 inches, place, and I will pin it down, and I will make sure it's secured so that when I'm stitching it, one part won't be moving out of the other side of the pattern. So I'll just go ahead and pin the last one also on the pattern. After pinning, I'm just going to go ahead to stitch that point, and I'll double stitch it so that my loops won't be pulling out when I lace my dress. So after I'm done stitching, this is what I have at this point, and I'm just going to go ahead to notch it all the way around so that it's going to relax very well, and also notch the neckline of my dress. After that, I'm going to turn it to the right side for you to see what it looks like. So after I'm done sewing, this is what I have, and I noticed that the second loop is actually pulling out, so I'll just go ahead and readjust it. And after that, I'll be stitching about ½ inch I'll be stitching 1/2 inch. So if you're sewing with an eyelet, you'll be creating like 2 or 3 lacing bar area. So now I'll place this on the lining after I'm done sewing my boning, and now I'm going to go ahead to pin the neckline of this dress, and after I'm done pinning it, I'll also be pinning the sides, and after that I'll just go over to my sewing machine and I'm going to be stitching it down. So I'll be stitching it with 1/2 inch and also by the side of the dress. So after that, this is what I have. I'm going to go ahead to notch it so that it's going to relax. Another way is to top stitch your lining to your sewing allowance to the lining, and I'll just go ahead and turn it to the right side. So, and I'll also go ahead to iron this out so that it will sit properly. So this is it. After I'm done ironing, this is what I have. And the next step we're going to work on is to join this to the back pattern of our dress, and I'll just go ahead and place that and also place the other side. So on the other side of my neckline, I attached a loop. So I'm going to use the back shoulder to turn the front shoulder. I'll open the back shoulder and place the front shoulder in between it, and I'm just going to stitch with 1/2 inch, and I'll also repeat the same process at the other side and flip and stitch with 1/2 inch. So after I'm done turning, this is what my dress looks like, and this is also what the back looks like. So on one side, I'll just go ahead and stitch up my boning. So if you're using an eyelet, you'll be creating like 2 or 3 lacing bar area. So for the sleeve, I've gone ahead to cut it out. So I actually drafted that when we were drafting the tutorial, and I notched the center. So I'll be taking the right part, facing the right part of the material at the armhole, and I'll be stitching with 1/2 inch. So after I'm done stitching with 1/2 inch, I'm going to be adding like a fabric at the lower part. So I have little fabric remaining. So what I'm going to do is just to go ahead to pleat it on the sleeve all the way to the end of it, and I'll stitch it with 1/2 inch and also repeat it at the other side of my pattern. So after I'm done sewing, this is what I have. So now we are going to shape the dress. To shape the dress, I'll place my tape and mark my shoulder to bust. After that, I'll go ahead to mark my shoulder to underbust, which is 12, and the lower part is my waistline. So remember to also pin your pattern before you shape. So at the bust, I'll place my tape, and after measuring, what I have is 20 inches. And my bust circumference is 33 inches. 33 divided by 2, I have 16.5. So that 20 inches I have here, I'll be taking out 16.5 from it. What I'll have left is 3.5 inches. So that 3.5 inches, I'll be sharing it on both sides of my pattern. So I'll be having roughly 1.7 inches, and I'll just go ahead to mark this at both sides, or 1.75 inches. So at this part, which is the underbust, what I have is 18 inches here, and my underbust circumference is 28. 28 divided by 2, I have 14. Then taking out 14 from these 18 inches, I have 4 left. So that 4 inches, I'll be sharing it on both sides of my pattern. So going down to the waistline, after measuring what I have here, I have about 16 inches, and my waistline is the same as my underbust, which is 28 inches. So dividing 28 inches by 2, I have 14. So that 14, I'll be taking it out from these 16 inches we have on the waistline. So I will have 2 inches left. So I'll be marking 1 inch on both sides of my pattern, and I'll just go ahead to shape. So coming over to the armhole, my armhole circumference is 16 inches round. So dividing it by 2, I have 8 inches. I'll place my tape and also mark where I have 8 inches. So when we're cutting out the sleeve, what I added was just 1 inch sewing allowance. So I'm just going to go ahead to place my tape, and I'll mark that 1 inch all the way down. So getting to this part, I'll just slant it down, and I'll also repeat this at the other side. So at this part of my dress that I did not turn with lining, I'm actually going to weave it out. So after I'm done sewing my dress, this is what I have. Now we'll be working at for the upper part of the dress. All you have to do is place your tape straight, and you're going to measure what you have left. So what I have left on my waist now is 23 inches, and my actual waist length circumference is 28. So 28, taking out 23 inches from 28, what I will have is 5 inches. So that 5 inches, if I divide it by two sides, because I'll be adding like little fabric at both sides to create my zipper allowance, so that will give me 2.5 for each side, and I'll be adding extra 1 inch for zipper allowance on both sides, that is 3.5 inches. So I'll just fold my fabric and I will notch it. So after that, my main fabric, for the lower part, I'm just going to sew a gather stitch on it, and I will just gather it round. So let me just repeat for those that don't really understand. My actual waistline is 28. After measuring, what I have is 23 inches. So 28 minus 23, I have 5 inches left. So that 5 inches, I'll be adding 1 inch for zipper allowance at both sides of my pattern, which is 3.5. So that 3.5 now, I'll measure it first. After measuring it out, and I will now take the lacing bar area and I will pin. I'll pin immediately after that 3.5 inches that I have measured. After that, at the part that is notched at the center, I'll take it and I'll place at the basque point of this dress and pin. So at the end, at the other side also, just the same way I measured 3.5 inches, I will do that. But first, I'll go ahead and pin all the gathered side of my skirt on the upper part of my dress this way. So while pinning, you want to make sure that you follow the basque shape of what you have at your waistline, and I'll just go ahead and pin till I get to the middle before we go ahead to also pin at the other side of the dress. So after pinning to the middle point of my dress, now I'll start pinning at the other side of my pattern. So while I was dragging the gathers at this part, while I was dragging the rope for the gathers, the rope or thread actually cut. So what I'm going to do is just to go ahead and I will pleat it, and I will be pinning it on my dress. So I'll just go ahead and do this to the end of my dress, and also that point that we're going to leave for the zipper part area and the completion of my waistline, I'm also going to leave it for this part. If not, the dress will not fit your body. So now I'll measure out that 3.5 inches and I'll place it at the lacing bar immediately after the lacing bar area, and I will pin this part, and after I'm done pinning it, I'm going to be stitching this up. So I'm going to be stitching with 1/2 inch. So while I'm stitching, I'm going to stitch from the front part of my dress. So I'm actually supposed to show where I'm sewing this on the sewing machine, because I have a request on how to do that, but because of time, I'm just going to give an explanation of how to do that. So first, when you're sewing, instead of sewing from the gathered part of the dress, you'll be sewing from the upper part of the main dress that has the basque shape. This will enable you follow the basque on the dress, and you're going to be stitching with 1/2 inch. But if you follow the other side of the dress that has gathers, you might not really get the shape of the basque. So after I'm done sewing, this is what I have, and now I'm going to go ahead to wrap up that 3.5 inches that we left at the back. So I'll be cutting out 2 pieces for it. I'll measure 3.5 inches, and what I have here is about 4 inches by 3.5. So I'll cut it into 2, and I'll be using one side for one side of the gathers. So since my thread when I was sewing here cut, I'm just going to go ahead to pleat it to make sure it fits the 3.5 inches that I have cut out as a bias for my dress. So I'll just go ahead to place this, and I'm just going to go ahead to pin it. So after pinning it, I'm going to be stitching it with 1/2 inch first. After stitching with 1/2 inch, I'm going to go ahead to fold it and turn it to the other side and top stitch. Also at the other side of this dress, I'm also going to go ahead to place the other part that I cut out, and I will place and pin. So after I'm done pinning it, I'll stitch and then go ahead to turn it from the right side to the wrong side, place and top stitch. So after that, I'll just go ahead and place it together this way. I'll stitch up the lower part with 1 inch, and I'll fold the lower part also and go ahead to attach zipper at my dress. So after that, this is the final look of the dress, and I went ahead to create a lace to lace up the back. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button and join us in our next video.